You want to hit better overheads, you want a stronger shoulder, or maybe you have lagging, clicking, weird feeling within your shoulder. Stay to the very end to see my full shoulder workout to help hit better overheads. Pickleball isn't necessarily an overhead sport, right? Baseball is an overhead sport. Tennis is a little bit more of an overhead sport. Obviously softball and other throwing sports, those are considered overhead sports. Pickleball is, it's more played in front of the body, right? We're not getting overhead a ton. But depending on the game, depending on the team and their style, you're gonna hit a lot of overheads. And it's not uncommon to hit a lot of overheads at some points. So you need to be ready for that. You need to start doing shoulder exercises, right? You need to strengthen your rotator cuff, you need to strengthen your core, and you need to prehab it and make sure that you're not gonna get hurt. So there's 3 different ways in which I like to train the cuff and the shoulder girdle. The first one is gonna be scap on rib training, right? So if you look at my back, obviously I have 2 scapulas, right? And what we want them to do is I want them to be able to rotate upward properly, right? So as my arms go up overhead, I want my scapula to be rotating. They should be rotating up and around as my arms go up overhead. So let's say as this arm is going up overhead, this scapula should be rotating up as my arm goes up, right? And ideally, once my arms are overhead like this, the spine of my scapula should probably be at least a 45-degree angle, right? That's decent enough upward rotation as I'm going overhead. If they don't, right, if my scaps don't rotate well, let's say my arms are overhead and my scaps only rotate just a little bit and my spine of the scapula is only here, right? That's not 45 degrees. It can cause pinching in the shoulder, it can cause clicking, it can cause discomfort, or maybe I just can't even get there, right? Maybe I can only get to here overhead. So our first concept is to train the scap on the rib to float and rotate well up and on the rib cage. If you have a weak lower trap and you're very upper trap dominant, it's gonna make that scapula kind of flip off. You've probably seen people with like a winging scap where their scap is kind of not tucked up. You can kind of see it protruding off of their back. That's what that is, right? So within shoulder programs and within movement preps, right? If the client and the athlete demands of it, that's what we'll do, right? That's the first step is making sure that the scap rotates properly and is on the rib cage properly. So training scap on rib is first, and then training the ball and socket joint, right? The actual glenohumeral head. It sucks in to the top of my scap to this AC joint and into my rib cage. So pretty much like this, we want this glenohumeral head and this, let's just say it's like my rotator cuff muscles. We want those to be strong. Right, so we're gonna train it to rotate well within there. So what we'll do is exercises that one strengthen the cuff and external rotation and internal rotation and good ranges of motion. And then lastly, we'll train for the same joint to be able to react well, because all sports are reactive, right? We're doing fast movements, we're punching here, we're turning into a forehand, right? It's all reaction based. So we'll do things like perturbations, where it's a mind guessing game and you have to like turn on and turn off certain muscles, and we're challenging the glenohumeral head to stay in the middle. Turn on these muscles, turn on these ones, and just kind of challenging it. You'll understand a little bit better at the end when we show you our exercises, but we'll challenge it to react and stay within that. Lastly, reactionary based muscles. Those are our 3 concepts in how we train the cuff and how you can get a healthy shoulder and hit better overheads. Now let's go into the shoulder program. We're gonna go through a few exercises that follow those 3 principles and kind of in that order so that we're setting ourselves up for success, because we gotta be in good position with our rib cage, with our shoulder blades, for us to really be able to benefit from all of the exercises. Okay, so our first exercise is going to be a wall slide. And this is one of many wall slide variations, but it's just a basic wall slide. So to do this properly, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get on a wall. This wall's stucco and it's a little bit rough on my hands, but it'll be okay. What I'll do is I just want to be in a good first torso position. So I want to make sure that my ribs are down. I'm in a straight line posture, right? I'm not extended. I'm going to put the sides of my hand on the wall. I'll split my stance just so that I'm in a good posture here. Ribs down, core engaged, and I'm going to slide my hands up on the wall, keeping that pressure on the wall, allowing my scaps to really feel my scaps rotate up and around. Keep this core engaged, and I'll come down keeping that same pressure. This next exercise is called a bent over low trap raise. Our goal here is to find that lower trap. So our lower trap is right to like this is the bottom of my scap, the real point of it, it's right under that. So it's the bottom part right below your scap. It's a very hard muscle to find because it's one, it's small, and two, a lot of us like to compensate with our upper trap. When things get heavy, you probably find yourself shrugging a little bit, maybe even if you're benching, right? You're benching, you get a little tired, you start to shrug. It's a common mechanism for copping out. So here, we're gonna keep, right, like these are 2.5 pound plates. No one's trying to be a hero here. I'm trying to find my low trap. Okay, so I'm gonna get bent over, slight knee bend. I'll bend over, trying to get my chest pretty close to parallel with the ground. Then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have my thumbs facing up. I'm gonna go into a Y position, hold for a split second, and come back down. My goal isn't to feel this in my shoulder. I'm trying to lift my arm with that lower trap muscle. I'm doing this in a Y position because that lower trap muscle is kind of in a Y position, right? It's under my scap in this Y position towards my midline. So I'm here, thumbs up, trying to activate that lower trap. You'll get a little bit more low trap if you don't extend with your posture, right? If I don't get here as I'm doing these, I'm not gonna really get anything. I gotta get that core engaged. So the goal, not to use your upper trap, not to use your shoulders. Activate the low trap. It takes time, it takes consistency, but you're gonna find it and you're gonna get your scap strong, you're gonna get your lower trap strong, and your scap's gonna be able to rotate well on your rib cage. Now we're working on strengthening the cuff. We're gonna work on strengthening this external rotation pattern. So I have a very light band. This is like a 15-pound tubing band. It's not about the resistance yet. It's about working the range of motion and knowing how not to compensate with other muscles. Because this is another one where it's easy to do when I compensate with my upper trap and I'm shrugging it out. So what I'm doing is I'm pretty much perpendicular with this pole here. I'm facing this way. I don't have a handle on the band, so I'm just kind of grabbing it in the middle of my hand. I'm gonna get at 90 degrees, and then I'm just gonna pull into external rotation in this half kneeling position. Bottom leg is down, closest to the pole, not shrugging, little pause at in range for me. Right there, going into external rotation. I'll typically do about 10 of these, keeping this, trying to keep that 90 position. This is my non-dominant arm as well, so I'm a little bit weaker there. So this is our strengthening portion of the cuff. All right, now pairing with this is gonna be a eccentric overload exercise. So I'm gonna be seated. I'm gonna grab a 5, maybe if you have a 7.5, some people can do 10. I could probably do 10, but I wanna be able to do it right and do it properly for you. So we're gonna be in a seated position, right? Just so that my arm is directly in front of my body, not directly like this way, maybe at like slightly at an angle outwards, but not out here. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop my arm into internal rotation for a 5-second count down. 3, 4, 5. If you can't pull it up, that's okay. You can use your hand. All we're worried about is the eccentric component going down and controlling this on the way down. This is probably my favorite shoulder exercise because you're overloading the system and you're getting the most amount of load through the cuff while being able to focus on your form. You're not going into this shrugging posture. I'm already getting tired. I need to do more of these. So our last pairing of exercises, we're gonna start to work in the reactive zone. So what I have is that same light band here, 15, 20-pound resistant band. It's not about the tension on the band. Skinnier band, the better, right? Literally as light as possible as a band as you have. You're gonna take a 2.5 pound weight. You're gonna slide it right down into the middle of the band. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be in a standing position. Standing just meaning hips, feet under my hips, slightly knee bend, athletic style, feet ready. I'm gonna go into a 90 degree position, 90 degrees. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my hand and I'm gonna flick this so that it bounces up and down, and I'm going to resist all of that motion with my cuff, right? It's gonna be trying to pull me, and I'm just gonna try and hold a stable position. So it's reactionary. You don't know what's really happening, where everything is going. Your goal is to keep the ball and the socket joint stable as possible. Every rep, I usually pull this back to the center or closer to my arm, and then I'll get a nice pull again. Your goal is always not to shrug, not to use that upper trap muscle. This is all cuff. I'll usually do about 8 little flicks and then switch and I'll do the other side. And I'll typically pair this with some kind of core that gets my shoulder involved as well. So I like to pair this with an iso bear. So here's an iso bear. This is a bear position. I'm gonna lift my knees up 1 inch off the ground, and then I'm gonna do a toe tap. So iso bear with toe taps. So I lift my knees up 1 inch off the ground. I'm gonna go into a toe tap. I'm gonna push up. As I'm pushing up and pushing the ground away, my scaps are rotating up and around in my rib cage. So now everything that we've kind of worked for the scaps and for the cuff muscles to do, they should be able to do a little bit more properly and do well here. So as I'm pushing the ground away, my scaps will rotate up. I'll touch my toe and I'll come back down to this bear position. I'll typically do 5 to 6 reps each side. I'm strengthening my shoulders, my core, and I'm letting my scaps rotate around my rib cage. If you made it this far, drop me a flexing emoji down in the comments. I appreciate y'all. I hope that this helps you, and I want you to be able to hit better overheads, have a stronger shoulder, as well as have a healthier shoulder. If you enjoyed this, check out my pickleball elbow video. I know how to solve it. I know how to get you better. Check this out.